Good evening, hockey fans, and welcome to Pod Snipe Celly. My name is Dan Bradley, usual co-host of the show. Joel Fernino is not with us tonight. You may notice that it's just me at the moment, but fear not, we do have a second guest. While Joel is busy partying it up in Florida for a family wedding, we are excited to introduce the first ever guest on the show. Please welcome to the show, Luke Morse. Luke, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm good.
Luke, tell us a little bit about your hockey fandom with pickup hockey, with hockey writing that you're doing, and just as a fan in general, who you root for. Give us a quick, maybe like a 2-minute introduction on Luke Morse and his connection to hockey.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Luke. I'm from Minnesota, the state of hockey. So I've been watching intently since around 2011. So I'm a big Wild fan, but I also am unfortunately a big Buffalo Sabres fan. I had some neighbors that were Sabres fans growing up, and I'd always play as them in NHL 2002 at my grandma's on the PS1. So unfortunately, been a Sabres fan for that long also. But yeah, so I've started paying attention to the league really intently, and pretty much watched a lot of games. And now I'm writing for Sports 2.0, Nup Sports here, on like Spooky Express articles on who to pick for pick'ems every night and stuff like that. And I recently started to learn how to play the game myself. I played a lot of broomball and floorball, which for those that don't know are stick sports that don't require skating. So wanting to take that next step and actually play myself, and learning how to skate has been a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun. And being in Minnesota, it's a lot of opportunity. So
there are certainly worse places you could be to try and learn how to skate than in the state of hockey. So that is awesome. Luke, want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. Those of you watching at home as well, if you have a comment, prediction, spicy take, anything you just want to share during the show with myself or with Luke tonight, please let us know. Drop something in the comments below. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and on Twitter. You can give Luke a follow at Luke_R_Morse on Twitter as well. Give him a follow. He is going to post a ton of hockey content here in the next few weeks. Luke, want to jump right into it with something that does unfortunately involve your Buffalo Sabres. And that is the highlight reel goal from Trevor Zegras-Sonny Milano the other night. The fake Michigan or the Michigan style assist, whatever you want to call it. It was an absolute highlight reel goal. We're seeing players at every level trying to do this now. I was at junior hockey last weekend, and players were trying to work it then. There's videos all over of, kids as young as peewees and squirts trying to learn how to pick up the puck and throw the puck over the net and get a tap in front. But not everyone was a fan of that move. And we have one, John Tortorella, former coach of the Rangers and the Blue Jackets. And Luke, I want to get your thoughts on what Torts had to say here. He said, quote, "I think our game has gone so far away from what our game should be. A hard game, an honest game. It's almost gotten too showman. I know you need to have it. You need to sell the game. But I'm from the ilk. It's still a hard game, and a good, honest hockey game needs to be played. I think with some of this stuff, we get carried away." Now, Luke, I want to ask you, is Torts in the right here, or is he kind of a grumpy old man, get off my lawn here with this type of play?
Yeah, well, I'm grumpy about the goal too, but not for the same reasons that Torts is, obviously.
Much different reason.
See, the thing is while I don't like it happening to my team, especially when they're actually playing okay, but then they lose because stuff like this happens, he's kind of complaining that, this is, it's too flashy, it's too showy. And honestly, like, it's kind of a lot to say for someone who coached borderline unwatchable teams for a long time. Like, everyone knows that, like, when you hear rumors that Tortorella is in the running for coaching a head team, you immediately think of like the All-Stars and be like, is that going to work for them? Because, it was his game that kind of turned PLD into a grinder and like was trying to transform Line into like a working man's forward and stuff like that. And like, his mindset is like, okay, like everyone contributes and we all kill penalties and we all play like a really physical, grindy game. And like, it works, right? Like we saw, like the highlight of his career is obviously Columbus beating Tampa Bay in the playoffs, like sweeping them and like that huge upset. But like, it's not like anyone was like, dude, did you watch the Columbus game tonight? Like it's boring. It's boring hockey. It's like, it's reminiscent of like those trap coaches that dominated the 2000s, right? Is like, we're going to play this style of hockey and it's going to be effective, but it's going to suck. So
a lot of Jacques Lemaire similarities.
Yeah,
there,
without the success,
Laviolette.
by the way, without the ultimate success.
Right.
Because it's not like those teams really went very far. At least I'm mainly thinking about his tenure in Columbus, right? Because that's what we're coming off of, and that's where he, kind of jumped back into relevancy. And so like he's a good coach. He can turn teams into like good teams, or like not good teams, but contending teams. Like if it came out that he was going to coach the Buffalo Sabres right now, I'd be like, oh, okay, like couldn't get worse, and maybe he can like turn those players into something. But this is what he does, right? He looks at superstars being loose and comfortable, and he goes, nope, we don't do that. We play solid, like standard hockey here. And so I don't agree with him on this. Obviously, like it looked great, and B, it works. It's not like, they're trying this and it's costing them the game. Anaheim won that game. So, and it was a 1-goal game, or were they shut out? It's either 2-goal or 1-goal game. But point is like the goals were kind of scarce to come by. It worked and they won. So I don't really see what there is to complain about.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, the old hockey adage of they don't ask how, they ask how many. And whatever you can do to get the puck into the net, why are you going to complain about it? I mean, for me, Torts is, I don't want to say out of line here, but he kind of is. And he did touch on the, you need to be able to sell the game, and the game needs to appeal to a casual fan. If I'm a casual fan watching a play like that, I'm going to go, do they do this all the time? And no, they don't. This is like the first time we've ever really seen that in an NHL game that wasn't, like an all-star game or something like that. I don't want to say a game changer, but in a way it kind of is, because like we just touched on, we've got players at the younger levels trying to learn how to do this. And it's innovative. It's different. It's something that the league hasn't seen before. And it's a way that you can market the game and put that on a highlight reel, get it on SportsCenter, get it in front of as many eyes as you can. So
right. And then the other thing too, I'm thinking is like, okay, if this is no good, it's like, okay, where do you draw the line, right? Like it was a national game that night, and the ESPN guys they were losing their minds. And I was like, oh,
rightfully so.
Shut up. Well, I was like, okay, we get it. Right. The goal was scored, as a Sabres fan, but like they're like, oh, this is the goal of the year. This is the goal of the year. This is the goal of the year. And for me, like in my mind, I was just like, well, McDavid has split 4 defensemen twice in the last 2 weeks and scored. And it was highlight goal. So then you go to Torts and you're like, okay, Torts, is McDavid splitting like 4 people in the defensive zone to bury it twice? Like, are we getting away from the game there too? Or like where's the line here? Like, is it just like you want passing plays and you just keep passing until the lane opens up and you shoot and you score? Is that like that's the honest man's game? Or like, where's the line? If like obviously he doesn't like this, does he like McDavid being McDavid? I feel like McDavid couldn't be McDavid on a Tortorella team, and that's not good for the sport.
Yeah, you bring up a very interesting point there, and I want to ask you a question that we didn't really necessarily talk about in show prep, but sometimes we do this type of stuff on the fly. Do we underappreciate how good at hockey Connor McDavid is, because we are so used to seeing these highlight reel moves and highlight reel goals and impressive scoring totals? Like, do we underappreciate Connor McDavid?
No, there's no way. People are literally talking about Connor McDavid all the time. It's literally like, was Connor McDavid going to score 400 points this year? He actually might. And it's like to the point of like absurdity. Like there's no way he's going to score that much. But I do think, though, that like the fact that this is talked about as goal of the year already, and the fact that McDavid has enough for like 3 seasons worth of highlights already in this season alone, that aspect of it, yes, I feel like maybe we don't talk about him enough. But I mean, he's like Like he's like the guy. It's like Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, Connor McDavid, and I think he's getting his due diligence for the most part. Maybe on the national scale, sometimes not so much, but for like in general, like for the sport, I think he's getting his due diligence.
I'm a little surprised that we have on a Tuesday night game with 14 games scheduled that one of those 14 is the Maple Leafs and the Oilers. So you get the marquee matchup of stars with McDavid and Draisaitl for Edmonton. You get Matthews, Tavares, Nylander. Marner's out of the lineup, but working his way back. You have that kind of star power, and they don't put it on a Wednesday night game. They bury it in a Tuesday night game when everybody's already watching, their teams. We get lucky as Wild fans that game is canceled tonight, and we can tune in for a little bit. But
I am so frustrated with the way the league has been handling broadcasting. I mean, it's one thing. It's like I play fantasy hockey, so that's annoying, right? Like, okay, everyone plays on like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday every week, but then you get like these reports that's like, oh, like we're gonna have to put ads on the jerseys next year because like we're just not getting the support monetarily that we need. It's like, well, no, duh, dude. Like you have every single game happening at once. People aren't watching the game. Like the game's not gonna grow if all the games happen at the same time every week. Like I get that we didn't have anything on Monday because it's like, well, we can't compete with like Monday Night Football, but it's still like, dude, if you want to get there, you're gonna have to like get people to see games. And like the fact like blackouts are still a thing too. It's people are even having a hard time seeing the games happening when they're all happening at once. It's like, who is running this clown show? Like, you gotta fix this, guys.
Yeah, let's move everything to ESPN Plus, but then we'll still black it out in the local market so you can't see it, even though you have to pay to watch it.
No,
it's ridiculous. So speaking of ridiculous here, we're going to go into another one that really surprised me last week to see, and that is the Arizona Coyotes late on their rent payment. I mean, this is kind of a story that has come out of nowhere, but the Arizona Coyotes owe $1.3 million in rent and in fees to the city of Glendale. They were behind on like their taxes as well beyond just the rent. They've since taken care of that bill, but the Coyotes in some hot water here. And in fact, the city has said, if you don't have everything squared up by December 20th, by next week's show for us, that the Coyotes would get locked out of the stadium. Luke, I want to start with you on this. Where do the Coyotes go from here? I mean, is this something that is just an issue with the team? Is it just an issue with the city? Or is this a bigger issue NHL-wide where the NHL needs to step in and do something?
Where do the Coyotes go from here? Not Arizona, dude. Move them. Move that team. They are terrible. They're cursed in every single way. They're cursed on the ice. They're cursed in player development. They're cursed with their fan base. They're cursed in their location in terms of like a hockey market. They're cursed because they're a team that relocated to Arizona already, and they've had nothing. The closest they've had is what, like a conference finals run with like Mike Smith as a goaltender, like in the mid 2000s or something like that.
Yeah, 2012, maybe spring of 2012, yeah. I think. With
way back when they weren't even they were in Phoenix or whatever, when, and they moved
morning
again.
For all the Blackhawk fans watching that Marian Hossa, the hit from Rafi Torres there that ended the Hawks' hopes of winning that cup. That was the one good team that Arizona has
right. That is
had.
Their like highlight since moving to the state of Arizona from Winnipeg when they were the original Jets team, right? Like, I mean, like and then you have like so many scandals, right? Like they lost their first round draft pick last year because of shenanigans that they were pulling. And it's not like they had much in the prospect pool anyway. They finally like were able to do something in terms of like making a team that makes the playoffs to make it as a wild card and get smashed by Colorado. Like they upset Nashville in a play-in round. Congratulations. Like
Well, then remember the gambling ring too with Rick Tocchet that they were concerned that Wayne Gretzky was involved in that because he was the coach at the time.
A disaster. There isn't like their highlights were beating Nashville in the play-in, the mid 2010s run, I guess, and then going back to the Kachina. That's it. That's it. And that's like the bare minimum. Like, it's just like you have nice jerseys now, and like they're not even, this might be a controversial opinion, they're not even good. Like they're fun and people like them because they're fun. They're not good.
You're talking about the jerseys or the team here?
I'm talking about the jerseys.
Okay, I was gonna say, if you were saying that Coyotes hockey was fun when they're
it's not fun. It's miserable. So like as a Sabres fan, right? There have been a couple teams that have been in the gutter with us for a long, long time. And the two main teams that were in the gutter with the Sabres since the rebuild started back in like 2012, 2013, the Coyotes and the Panthers. Those are the two teams that have been like garbage in the basement forever. Now, obviously the Sabres are a dumpster fire and a half, and I'm not going to talk about how inadequate they are. But
that's fair.
The Coyotes managed to be in the like rush for Connor McDavid with us in 2015, right? Like the last game of the season was when Buffalo, like it was a home game. They were wearing those terrible they were called the Turd Burger jerseys. I don't know if you remember. They were like the yellow alts, and they were terrible. It looked like they had capes, and the owner was like, if they're called Turd Burgers, then I'm gonna have to eat it because they're here to stay. Like, it was just terrible, right? And it was a tank season. They were trying to lose, and the home crowd was cheering against Buffalo because if we lost to Arizona, we clinched last place. And we lost to Arizona in overtime. Like, that's how close it was. Those teams were terrible. They were god awful. And the fact that it pains me to say this, but the fact that both Buffalo and Arizona are still in the same spot are kind of indicative of how terrible franchises they are. But the only difference is Arizona is not a hockey market. And I understand that Bettman is desperate to make it a hockey market. Like, you look at what's happening in Vegas, right? And before the Knights go to Vegas, no one's going to say that, Las Vegas is a hockey market. But then you look at the success that comes with Vegas, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, it's so great for the sport. So great for the sport. The Coyotes are just roadkill, right? That's what they are, right? You drive by and you're like, ugh, that's gross. It's a dead animal on the side of the road. That's what the Coyotes are to the sport. It's terrible. They're god awful. They're unironically playing Louis Eriksson and Andrew Ladd right now. Okay, that's not good for the sport. Atrocious. It's not good for anyone. No. I've watched some of their games, and this is the worst hockey team I've ever seen iced. And I can't see this ever improving for Arizona. Part of me is even if they turn things around and become a competent franchise, I look at the Panthers, right? The Panthers, despite being just the nastiest team ever right now, they're still struggling to fill up their arena. And I think that the Coyotes are in an even worse spot than they are in that terms, because there's so many plants in Arizona. If you ever watched a Wild game against the Coyotes, it's like a home game for the Wild. It's just crazy. And I don't see Arizona having this super dedicated fan. If there are dedicated Arizona fans, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you have to endure this. I can't see them ever becoming a hockey market, and the team is better off. They can't even pay rent in their arena. What do we have to do? What more do we have to do for someone to be okay, you know what? We should move them probably. We should move them to another market that's way bigger and, can actually have a hockey team. We should move them to Houston, where
HP says put them in Quebec and move on with life.
I mean, it'd be fun to move them to Quebec, I guess. Move them to Houston. Move them to, I don't know,
Atlanta. Bring back the Thrashers.
you want to talk about cursed city? I mean,
Oh
sure.
man, no kidding.
It didn't work last
Didn't work for the Flames. Didn't work for the Thrashers.
Yeah,
Third time's a charm. I just want those jerseys back.
Let's
honestly.
move the team that was the former Jets to Atlanta, which is where the last Atlanta team went to the Jets. So it's a cycle, right? Might as well. Maybe it's in the cards.
Yeah.
Honestly, anywhere. Move them to Portland. Move them to some random city. I don't care, but get them out. Like, they are just a nightmare. They're a disaster. Make the Kachina something like a Whalers jersey or a North Stars jersey where you're like, man, like, remember those teams? Like, that was so fun, but they were terrible. You just get them out. Get them out. If you can't pay rent, you can't be in the league. Like, incompetence has to have a limit, and I'm sick of it.
All I know is if I went as long without paying my rent as the Coyotes have gone without paying theirs and getting squared up, I mean, I would not be in my apartment right now doing this podcast. Yeah. I would be in a world of hurt.
And also, it's like you're owned by a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever. So either he can't pay it, and so you need to sell the team immediately, or he just doesn't want to pay it, in which case you need to sell the team immediately, or he forgot to pay it, in which case you need to sell the team immediately.
Yeah, like, I don't buy this. He forgot to pay it.
Yeah.
You know, a $1.3 million tab. If you're owing that, you're getting calls on the daily.
Yeah, it's bad. It's terrible. And like, there are incompetent teams out there. Source, Sabres. But like, at the end of the day, what keeps them going is the fact that they have a demand for their team to stay. And if things get better, like they'll get this big support. I don't see that happening with Arizona. I can't see it. Like, they could get a Connor McDavid, and I still am not convinced that they are, like, best case scenario, you move them back to Phoenix is like the best case scenario for
to keep
Coyotes
them in Arizona.
Fans. But that's the best case. I think hockey in Arizona is a failed experiment. It's time to move on. But Bettman is so like he's come out and said, like, we're keeping the Coyotes in Arizona. These rumors are baseless. We're keeping them in Arizona. And it's like, why? Why are you so like to admit that it didn't work? Or like what's the reason that we're keeping them in Arizona? Like, they're just a disaster. Like, Andrew Ladd should not be playing right now. I'm sorry. He shouldn't. It's not watchable. They're going to get national broadcasts. You want that to grow the game? Are you kidding me? They're terrible. No way.
Yeah, I think it's if we admit that Gary Bettman was wrong about putting a team in Arizona, maybe we can admit that he was wrong about the lockouts. Maybe we can admit that he was wrong about concussions. Maybe he was wrong about the opioid problem with the league. There's so many more doors that it opens that we can question his credibility. It seems like he's trying to hang on to that last shred of like trying to put Band-Aids over the dam that is rapidly filling with holes, and the water is pouring in, and he's trying to patch it with Band-Aids. It's not going to work. But it's his dam, so he wants it to stay built. That's kind of what it feels like.
Stupid. The Coyotes are just a nightmare on ice. I mean, it's just you keep going, well, you know, it couldn't get worse, and then it like somehow does. Like, imagine going before the news of the rent comes out, and you know you're watching the Arizona Coyotes who have 5 wins on the season this year so far, by the way, and you have a fan just being like, well, it can't get worse, and then you get news of like Coyotes can't pay rent, and you're like, oh my god, how does this happen? Like, this doesn't happen with any sport at all. This is just so goofy. It's just
it's weird. It's weird, and at the risk of making a transition here away from the Coyotes, we're almost going to go right back to them because that's one of the teams playing in that Wednesday spot tomorrow night with only 3 games on the calendar. So we're going to have to see in the evening block of games the Coyotes are going to be playing.
I can tell you who I don't have winning tomorrow.
Well, we're going to kind of handicap that a little bit, and maybe it's worth it here. So on the all-time update, I had a 4-win week last week. Joel went 2-2, so that puts the season total to Joel and I are both 11-7. We're starting to turn things around. I had a couple bad weeks. Joel had a great week. We're going to kind of dump on him a little bit because he's not here. But Luke, you are our first ever guest picker in the history of the show. And I want to start with those Arizona Coyotes. New York Rangers minus 1.5 goals, plus 105. At the Arizona Coyotes, plus 1.5 goals, minus 125. Luke, is there any chance that the Rangers don't win this game by at least 2 goals?
Absolutely. 100%. Are you kidding me? Have you seen the Rangers? They will randomly play down to teams' levels. Like, example, the Sabres game that happened, which we'll talk more about my 2 minutes for roughing later. But
ooh, teaser.
They tend to sometimes play down to competition. So I could totally see them winning a dumb game 3-2 or something stupid like that. I could totally see it happening.
Well, the Arizona Coyotes, like we've said, 5-20-2 on the season. They're on pace for one of the worst, if not the worst, season in NHL history. The worst was an 80-game regular season. The Washington Capitals 8-67-5. And the fact that we're talking in this day and age about that being a realistic possibility is just ridiculous.
I don't see them getting less than 8 wins. But then again, you asked me, okay, well, when do they win? I wouldn't have an answer for you, but it is a beautiful train wreck to watch. It is it's fascinating. It's a case study. It's it's not good, but it's incredible to comprehend.
So the pick is in. You are going with Arizona 1.5 or New York minus 1.5?
Rangers win, but I'm gonna go with the Arizona 1.5.
You're taking the Arizona cover. Mm-hmm. Man dumps on him for 20 minutes of the show here and then decides, you know what, let's pick them to cover. I think for everything we've talked about in the last 20 minutes, I can't take Arizona. Give me the Rangers minus 1.5 in this one. I mean, they're objectively from top to bottom of that roster. Like, the Rangers are just a straight up better hockey team, but you've got Igor Shesterkin out. That kind of puts a damper on things. He was playing like Vezina caliber pace before he's lower body injury. So he's still going to be out for, I think, about another week here. Maybe Friday he might be back, but there's no way. I got to go Rangers here. Plus, here's the thing though, plus 105, like, it's so close. Like, what does Vegas know that we don't know? Like, this
Louis
is
Eriksson,
perfectly
obviously
a trap game for the Rangers. Like, they will need to be careful. Like, this easily could be one of those where you blink and then all of a sudden you're down, 5-0 at the end of the first. Because
Andrew Ladd's got 3.
Andrew Ladd with a hat trick. If Andrew Ladd gets a hat trick tomorrow night, you are back on the show every night through the end of the season. We will get you a full-time spot. Great. If Andrew Ladd gets a hat trick tomorrow night. I'll be the biggest
Yotes fan ever tomorrow, even though I just slandered them for 20 minutes or whatever.
All right, next pick on the slate, Washington Capitals. We're going straight up on this one, so no handicap on the point spread or the puck line. It's just Washington Capitals straight up minus 145 at Chicago Blackhawks plus 125. We need to get another Blackhawks mention in for Joel. Otherwise, I'm going to hear from it tomorrow. So, Luke, going to you. Washington Capitals, Chicago Blackhawks. Who you got?
Caps. Hawks stink. Sorry, Joel.
I mean, Joel's not here. You can rip on him even more if you want. The Hawks are only 5 wins ahead of Arizona.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're 5-5 in their last 10, right? And
Hawks are, yes. So a little better under Coach King.
So they managed to go from abysmal, unwatchable to boring 500. Good on Marc-Andre Fleury for his 500th win the other day, I guess. But they're bad. They're built to be this. They're built to be 5-5 in their last 10 for the rest of the season. They're not good, and Ovi is obviously playing on another planet right now. And I I gotta go with the Capitals. The Hawks are absolutely garbage.
HP Hawks stink, and I'm not sorry, Joel. HP and Joel, love-hate relationship there with the Blackhawks and the Wild. Joel.
I mean, big Wild fan here, and I listened to the first podcast of the year with here, where I listened to Joel talk about the depth pickups that Chicago made, and then they played Colorado that first night, and a rude awakening, and the
Seth Jones is not all he is cracked up to be.
Sorry, Joel.
Washington, kind of like the Rangers, is in a little bit of a weird spot. Tom Wilson may or may not be back in the lineup tomorrow night. Nicholas Backstrom, who hasn't played all season, he is back to skating with the team. He might be back in the lineup tomorrow night, but still no guarantee that he's in. Hathaway is in COVID protocol. So Washington kind of a little showing some signs of weakness here a little bit. 6-3-1 in their last 10. They're still in first place in the Metro Division. They're a point ahead of Carolina and the Rangers, but both those teams have a game in hand.
They just came off of a close shootout win with Buffalo. So part of me thinks
it's concerning.
Well, part of me thinks that this is the game where they go, okay, wake up.
I think if Backstrom plays tomorrow, Ovi gets a hat trick, and Backstrom has the primary assist on all three of them. I mean, they have that type of chemistry with each other. I can't do it. I can't pick Chicago to beat Washington. Washington's going to win this game. Maybe a hat trick for Ovi, even if he doesn't play with Backstrom. But for sure, if he does, we'll go hat trick for Ovi in that one. You took Washington as well, correct?
Yep, taking Washington all the way.
And third game of the night, the late night game, Seattle Kraken plus 130 at the Anaheim Ducks minus 150. Seattle starting to turn it around a little bit here, 5-3-2 in their last 10. Anaheim 6-2-2. Will we see another Sonny Milano, Trevor Zegras goal? Probably not, but at least from a pick standpoint, Luke, who you got in this one?
Ooh, Ducks 150. I feel like that's too much. I think I got to go with I hate this. The Kraken have been nothing but disappointing for me on my pick'ems this year. They've let me down every time. Getzlaf is back.
Yes, Getzlaf is back.
He's back, but he doesn't quite have what he had before the injury so far. I'm going with the Kraken. Going with the Kraken.
Bold upset pick. Maybe not necessarily bold, but at least a good upset pick. I mean, Seattle, taking a look at their road record here. 6-8-1 at home, 3-7-2 on the road. Not really a whole lot to
not great
to split there, but Anaheim, I think this is the difference for me. 9-4-2 at home. Philip Grubauer's just been so bad.
He's been terrible.
For Seattle. I had all the confidence in the world running into fantasy hockey this season, thinking that he was going to be a great goaltender. And
I thought so also.
I am considering going a no goaltender strategy in the future. Like, don't even draft a goaltender, pick up guys on the waiver wire doing spot starts, make sure I get my 4 a week, and just go from there and hammer the other picks. I mean, it's hard. Like, look at last year with Carter Hart. Everybody was looking at Carter Hart in like second, third, fourth round of the draft, and he was well off the board at that point. And then he had one of the worst seasons like in the last 10 years for a goaltender to have.
Grubauer's numbers are like astonishingly concerning, and he's on that like big contract. So
well, and he was third in the Vezina voting last year, which like I think that says something about how good Colorado is too, that he was able to finish third in the Vezina voting last year and just looks absolutely putrid this year.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I never was really sold on his goaltending with Colorado. I always thought that he was kind of carried by an amazing offense. And I kind of think that this kind of proves my point this season is the Kraken, their worst thing about them by far is their offense. They just don't really have much in the offensive tank. We all knew that after the expansion draft, and we were like, oh, they're going to be a defensive team, but Grubauer has not been very good at all. And I sincerely think that a lot of his success had to do with Colorado's offensive production.
Well, look at all the players that Seattle passed on offensively in the draft. Like guys, they were taking third and fourth line role guys and like minor leaguers who might maybe someday crack an NHL roster and passed up the chance to go out and get some of those stars. There was a lot of talk of maybe with Vladimir Tarasenko wanting out of St. Louis that he was going to be the guy for the Kraken, or there was talk of winger for the Flyers, there was talk of Voracek on the way out because Voracek got traded to Columbus. But he was another one that there was talk that maybe, he might be a guy that could be a true first line player for Seattle that they just passed on. So I'm going to go different here. I'm going to take the Ducks. Ducks are better at home. It should be a close game. I think we're looking at another low scoring type of game, though. I think a 2-1 or 3-2 type of game is probably where this one's going to go. I don't really see, giving Anaheim like a -2 to try and get some better betting odds on that. I'm just taking the Ducks outright in this one. Looking at for Anaheim to win by 2, it's +170. So, I mean, that's that big of a swing in betting odds. Low scoring game, take the under. I'm going to run with the Ducks on that one. So I took the Ducks, you took the Kraken. We both took Washington, and then you took Arizona +1.5. I still can't believe you did that. Arizona +1.5. I took New York -1.5. Those are your Wednesday night picks. Luke, we are to that time of the show, our favorite time of the show, 2 minutes for roughing, and you, my friend, are going to have the first ever guest 2 minutes for roughing. Right. It is all yours. For those who are just tuning in for the first time, 2 minutes for roughing is how we like to close out all of our shows. 2 uninterrupted minutes to rip whatever topic you want. We have done people who don't use their turn signals in traffic. We have done Chicago pizza versus New York pizza. We have done the need for rule changes, the trapezoid rule. Luke, you get the full 2 uninterrupted minutes. Are you ready?
Born ready.
Born ready. I love that. All right. 2 minutes for roughing, and count you in here in 3, 2, 1. All yours.
Okay. The league is genuinely getting to the point where it is becoming unwatchable because of bad reffing. And I hate sounding like that guy. Oh, the refs are so biased against my team. And I get that. That's a problem. And like being a homer is a thing. And I don't want to be a homer. Do not get me wrong. But holy God. Okay. So case in point, right? Rangers versus Sabres. It's a 2-1 game, 30 seconds left. Sabres carry it in. They score 2-2. There's some questions at the line. Linesmen go, it's good. It's all good. Toronto goes, nope. It was offsides. Nope, take it back. And the linesmen go, okay, yep, it was offsides. So then it goes back to being a 2-1 game. Buffalo loses. Next day, Toronto comes out and they're like, oh, by the way, we got that call wrong. So we had called the Sabres this morning and we were like, we're sorry. What? Like the game, you are control. What? That is insane. And then you watch, right? I'm watching the Wild games the other day. Alex Goligoski takes a hip check on a Vegas player. Standard hip check in the center of the ice. Refs call it. And it's like, huh? Like Goligoski gives a thumbs up, like sarcastic, like nice going, ref. Like that was a great call. Why is there no accountability for refs when they do their job poorly? And it's like unanimously, like they did their job poorly. There's a ref that like Michael Russo in the LA Kings game he was just shredding, who has like a history of like soft calls against the Wild. There needs to be accountability because it's like noticeable sometimes. And I try not to sound like a homer, but like there are points this season where it's like, dude, this is ruining the game. And like, if I did my job that badly, I would get fired. So the league needs to do something about it because it's getting ridiculous and it sucks. I hate it. Okay, I'm done.
There you go. Well done, Luke. Does that almost feel like a little therapeutic? You feel better now that is all off your chest. You've put it
So
out there.
dumb. Yes, it does. It's like popping a pimple. It's just stupid.
One of those things that you just got to do. HP calling for fining referees. I kind of am in agreement here. Maybe sit them out for a game, figure something out there. But was it Steve Kazari?
Kazari. Yeah, that was the guy.
Steve Kazari was the one that you were talking about with the Wild and the Kings the other night. Him and Francois Saint Laurent. Those two, if I know either of them are working the Wild game, I expect at least 4 power plays for the other team. I mean, it's ridiculous how one-sided it can seem. And like you said, none of us wants to be like, oh, it's all the ref's fault we lost. Like, no, you still have to go out and play the game and work through that. But when you get a call that is that egregious and you get the league calling the next day to say, well, sorry, we were wrong, but we're also not going to do anything about it. It just causes so many problems. There's no accountability. I look at other sports where, baseball and I think basketball as well, the referees are available to the media shortly after the game. So like they get a chance to kind of look things over and explain, but they're still accountable relatively immediately after the game. Football, you don't have that. NHL, you don't have that. Do we need to go to that type of a system?
1,000,000%, because like there needs to be something where the refs are a little more cognitively aware of what they're doing. Like again, like you will not find any other job where if you do your job, you mess up your job that poorly, like you get to just start the next day like nothing happened. Like you're gonna have to sit down and you're gonna have to be like, okay, why did you do that? Was this a lapse of judgment or like what's going on? It's just so dumb. I can't do it. I hate it.
Well, I don't know how. I think maybe the other thing that we need to do is put maybe a 2-minute rule on all reviews. And if you need to take longer than 2 minutes to make a call on the review, call on the ice stance. The idea of the review system is supposed to be, the guy for Colorado, Duchesne, who was like 3 strides offside and everybody missed it and they called it a goal. Like that was why the NHL implemented video review, was for the clear as day obvious stuff, not the we need to slow this down and zoom in and put it all in 4K at the lines so that we can see is a millimeter of his skate blade offside. That's not the intent or the spirit of the rule. It is an advantage gained. And you look at that type of play, there's not an advantage gained because you have a player who is tagging up, whose momentum is going outside the zone, not into the attacking zone. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think you hit the nail on the head there. HP with another one here. If referees don't want to be criticized and the league doesn't want them to be criticized, they need to do a better job. Be better at your job. Yeah, the criticism is without a doubt warranted. I mean, there's no...
Well, and it's like a terrible look for the league. You're gonna try and convince a new player, come check out the NHL. It's super fun. And then they look up and it's like, oh yeah, Toronto called the Sabres and told them that their game-changing mistake was in fact a mistake and that they're sorry about it. It's like, this is a clown league. This is run by clowns.
As the NHL is starting to get more involved with betting and partnerships with FanDuel and with DraftKings, and teams have their specific affiliations. Like, people are betting real money on this league. Like, you need to be getting it right. In the NFL, when they had in the Rams the playoff game a couple years ago against the Saints, where they missed the call at the end of the game, like the league immediately made a change. It took one game. It took after the Super Bowl and then to the next season, we're changing this immediately.
Don't get me wrong. The NFL is not the
poster
boy for how to handle your referees.
But you can at least point to the fact that they made a change when they saw a change was needed. I don't know how you can look at the NHL right now and say that change isn't needed.
Yeah, I am still just, I'm over it. Like the LA and Vegas games, the way they were like officiated, it was just like frustrating. Like, and it is frustrating because you feel like you can't talk about it without, like, you sound like a homer. I sound like a homer. I totally do. I acknowledge that fully, but also like I think that there are some things happening that are blatant and egregious and need to be addressed in some way. And I don't see them being addressed anytime soon. So
I think that's probably a good place for us to wrap it up tonight. That is it for tonight's episode of Pod Snipe Celly. Luke, want to thank you for joining us on the podcast tonight. Where can people find your hockey takes going forward?
I tweet about hockey and Minnesota sports in general at my Twitter, Luke_R_Morse. But be warned, there's not a lot of joy there in most cases as a Sabres and Minnesota sports fan. So
that's just a Paramore misery business is what that is.
Really,
right
I don't know why I do this to myself, but I'm in it now. So.
All right, well, that is it for tonight's show. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you to Noop Sports and the Sports 2.0 Network for giving us this platform. We are 9 shows up and down in the books. We will talk off air with Joel if he will be back next Tuesday night. Try and figure out what we're going to do there. One more thank you to Luke Morse as well for joining us on the program tonight. Luke, enjoy the rest of your night, my friend. And to everybody watching at home, thank you. We'll see you next time.